And that interaction, which lasted over 6 hours, was the most extensive interaction that our team of MPs has ever had with any single traditional leader in one particular city. We are very, very honored and humbled to rise. You do not just invite us, you did not just give us the time to speak to you and interact with us, but you gave us a lot of advice, you gave us a lot of insight, and you spoke from a position of knowledge, and you spoke from a position of power. And we are very grateful, because coming back from there, everybody got re-energized. Got re-energized in the manner that we handle our responsibilities as members of parliament, in the manner that we deal with aspects that are pertaining to the governance of our country. And you are spot on, Your Royal Highness. It was the right time. It was the right thing to do at the right time. We are very, very grateful, Your Royal Highness. And we shall never, ever betray you, because you took leadership. Your Royal Highness, we also want to take advantage of this gathering here today to say one or two issues that has happened since we came back from Masabo. Your Royal Highness, the first issue that has happened is that as we informed you, as we left Masabo, we divided ourselves into two groups. One group remained in Mansa to deal with a few issues, and one group proceeded to Chifunabuli, because our dear sister, the Honorable Member of Parliament for Chifunabuli, Honorable Mfanki, requested that we escort her, or part of our team escort her, to her constituents, so that she goes and do one or two things which she had pre-planned. Your Royal Highness, there is no single provision in the constitution of this country. Neither is there a provision in the Bible that a sitting member of parliament should seek for clearance or permission from any authority or from any person whatsoever, including the police. Never. There's no provision. And there have been numerous rulings on the floor of the House that a member of parliament has the freedom to go to his or her constituents, to go and do her work or his work. And they have the right to invite whoever they desire to escort them to go and do their work. If that work be in a matter of having a meeting, closed door meeting, open meeting, a rally, or whatever, it is up to the member of parliament to decide how he or she would want to interact with his or her own people. The employers, the people who elected them to be members of parliament. So it is very, very unbelievable and unbecoming for a constable somewhere to say that the interaction that our colleagues went to Chifunabuli with the member of parliament had any illegal gatherings. Your Royal Highness, I can tell you for now and for sure and for free that your children, your members of parliament who escorted Honorable Mfanki to go to her constituents for her meetings did not commit any crime. And the person committing the crime is that police officer issuing fake notices that MPs are on the run. He's the one committing a crime. And I want to send a very clear message that you cannot abuse your powers as a police constable or anybody else to issue degrading statements against members of parliament. It's unbecoming. This needs to come to an end. And I'm sending a warning that this must come to an end. The time for reckoning for all those who are misbehaving is at hand. So this kind of misbehavior needs to come to an end. Lo and behold, the character did not even know who escorted Honorable Mfanki. He has got no clue. He's mentioning names of people who are never in Chifunabuli. What kind of a police officer is he? At the same time, colleagues from the media, you must know that when our colleagues were in Chifunabuli, Honorable Mufalali was in Western Province addressing rallies. Why is there no warrant issued against him? There are videos circulating. He even called the President Hakainde Hichilema, to inform him that he's got these big rallies in Western Province. Lo and behold, there is no single police officer who has issued any derogatory messages about the conduct of Honorable Mfalali. Where are we trying to take this country? There are two separate sets of rules, one for the opposition and one for the ruling. President Hakainde Hichilema always confesses that he rules the country within the confines of the rule of law. Where is the rule of law? So we want to put this on record, that this must come to an end. And the better it comes to an end, the better. For those who are perpetuating this level of double standards, and for those who are being used. There's an expiry date for being used. There's always an expiry date for being used. For all those who think being used, they'll get their promotion. Mind you, the time period for the expiry date for President Hakainde Hichilema's RU and UPND is just around the corner. So how can you just portray and go out of your way to do all illegal things just because you're a police officer? That is unacceptable. So colleagues, I want to put this on record. Fast forward on the same issue. There's an article today in the Daily Nation on page 5, which states that Trevor Mwinde, boss of Warning Mwata Kazembe. Trevor Mwinde, a deputy national chairperson of the UPND, boss of Warning Mwata Kazembe. What cheek, what stupidity is this? Who is Trevor Mwinde to warn His Royal Highness Chief Mwata Kazembe? Who is he? And he goes further to degrade the people of Luapula province, to insult the people of Luapula province. And this is not the first time this is happening. Honorable Siakalima went to an extent of degrading and insulting the people of Luapula province, that have got poverty of the mind. Lo and behold, the president of UPND and the president of the Republic of Zambia and his circle, they were elected to remain quiet. And now we are seeing more and more insults on the people of Luapula province. Anybody who insults a single chief of Luapula province is insulting the entire Luapula province. And yesterday, the president had an opportunity to distance himself and the UPND from these insults against the people of Luapula province. They elected not to. Is what we are seeing, or what I'm seeing, is that what the reality is? That this Mwinde was sent by the top leadership to come and insult us, to come and insult our chief? That will not be accepted. That will not be tolerated. Let's do our own politics, party to party. Let's avoid bringing their Royal Highnesses into this kind of politicking. When His Royal Highness Chief Nkuni stood by the side of President Hakainde Hichilema while in opposition. Nobody insulted Chief Mkuni, Senior Chief Mkuni, because we knew that His Royal Highness Senior Chief Mkuni had a responsibility to protect his own son, Hakainde Hichilema, against all odds. We knew and we believed and we supported him. So if another Royal Highness from another part of the country elects to meet his own subjects, his own children, how does that become an issue which can invite this degrading, these insults from Trevor Mwinde, from the UPND? That's not acceptable. That is not right. So we're asking the UPND leadership to come clean on this particular issue. Because if they don't, we from Luapula province will take it upon ourselves and believe that they were sent to say these things they've said. They meant to agree. They meant to ensure that they can start insulting the people of Luapula province in this particular fashion. So we expect President Hakainde Hichilema and his NEC to take leadership and discipline Trevor Mwinde on this particular matter, and to discipline Honorable Siakalima on the issue that he said against the people of Luapula province. So I'm appealing to President Hakainde Hichilema to show leadership on this matter. How come whenever something happens in Luapula province or the northern part, they become so uncomfortable? Lo and behold, those who've got good memories will remember when our brothers and sisters in Eastern Province spoke about Umozi Kumawa, the few ministers from Eastern Province quickly met to discredit and insult the establishment of Umozi Kumawa, despite the fact that Umozi Kumawa has existed for over 20 years. When somebody spoke about Kola Foundation, lo and behold, some ministers from the northern part of Zambia, UPND ministers, were very quick to stand up and discredit and insult the establishment of the Kola Foundation. When lo and behold, this Kola Foundation has existed for many, many years, over 20 years. When our colleagues from Southern Province called for Jundu Jaitwa, when President Hakainde was in the opposition, nobody insulted them. They have the legal right, they have the constitutional mandate to meet and associate themselves as they wish. But how come anything that comes from northern part of Zambia, from eastern part of Zambia, it sends them into tantrums? What kind of human beings are we dealing with? There's been this Barosland issue by the BRE. What would have happened if that particular issue was being driven by somebody from northern Zambia? Are you sure there would not have been thousands and thousands of policemen sent to their homes to get arrested and put in prison? And yet when our colleagues talk about BRE, they talk about seceding from Zambia. Lo and behold, the silence is very quiet. Where are the ministers from Western Province? Honorable Stumbe Msotwane, where are you? Where are you? All you colleagues from Western Province, from Barosland, why are you not condemning this particular action by our colleagues to talk about secession? This issue of BRI will not go away. It needs to be dealt with. And government must show leadership. The president must show leadership by calling those colleagues to a meeting to deal with this particular issue. And these issues must be talked about in parliament. We cannot keep quiet as parliament. One or two of my colleagues tried to speak about the issue in parliament yesterday or the other day. They are not allowed to debate this particular issue in parliament. Why shouldn't we debate about issues which hinges on the stability of our country, on the future of our country, on the future of our children and their children? Why can't we speak about them? Please allow us to speak. Allow us to debate these issues. Allow us to talk about these issues. And you colleagues from Western Province, I'm calling upon you. Please condemn anybody promoting the agenda of secession. That's what you need to be doing. Just like your brothers did from Northern Zambia, who condemned the Kola Foundation. Just like your brothers did from Western Province, who condemned the Moses Mawa. So I'm hereby leaving the ball in the hands of the President. President Hakainde Hichilema, the ball is in your court. I thank you, colleagues.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chilangwa, for those remarks, and more importantly, the remarks on those that want to be disrespectful to our chief, who is a parent and just showed how a parent should handle children. At the same time, he interacted with ministers that came from the government. And so he was fair, and we commend him for what he did. Colleagues, now I will invite the leader of opposition, who will lay out a number of topical issues, which topical issues will be supplemented by our two colleagues. In summary, we are doing it the other way. I know we are used to getting the leader of opposition summarizing and concluding the discussion, but now he's going to lay the topical issues on the table that will be supplemented by our other colleagues. Honorable Leader of Opposition, Member of Parliament from Kokoso, Honorable Munduwire, I invite you to engage the first.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Whip. May I start by acknowledging the presence of our Deputy Party Secretary General, Honorable Nixon Chilangwa. And on my far right, I would also like to acknowledge the presence of our Shadow Minister, or Chairman for our Mines Committee, Honorable Pavuma. I also wish to acknowledge on my immediate left the presence of our Chairman, or Shadow Minister of Youth and Sport. This is no other than Mulenga Fuwe. May I also acknowledge the presence of our Shadow Minister, or Committee Chairperson on Commerce and Industry, the Honorable Kalalo Mukosa. Our Shadow Minister of Finance is at the back, and that's no other than Honorable Mutotwe Kafwaya. I wish to acknowledge the presence of my dear colleagues. This being our first media interaction this year, and I also know that we have not interacted for some time, I think since October. So today's interaction, like Director of Ceremonies earlier pointed out, will start with me giving an overview. As members of Parliament, we've had time to sit and review our work in Parliament. We've had time to review and look at the effectiveness of Parliament in contributing to the governance of this country. So today, we want to present our findings to the Zambian people, our findings on how Parliament has fared and what a contributory role this Parliament has had in what is going on, or indeed in the maladministration of today's government. It's common cause. Everybody knows that our economy is in shambles. Everybody knows that our health sector is in shambles. Everybody knows that the fight against corruption is nothing to talk about. Everybody knows that our public procurement system is in tatters. Everybody knows that Office of the Auditor General
which is supposed to be a watchdog institution to safeguard public resources, is actually in shambles. Everybody knows that there is no rule of law of constitutionalism to talk about. Now, as leader of opposition, speaking on behalf of my colleagues, honorable members of parliament from the opposition, we came to realize that this parliament has not served the Zambian people as it should. Parliament has a role, has a share in the blame for what is happening today in this country. Parliament is going to take a bigger part of the blame. Because if this parliament was functioning properly, we would not have allowed Honorable Mutolo Piri to get away with exporting the 1.5 million tons that they found in the reserves. If this parliament had allocated enough time to this particular subject, countrymen and women, today we still would have had maize in our sheds, and the mildew prices would not have been as they are today. If Parliament had allowed men and women to debate the export of maize sufficiently, we would not have been experiencing the high mildew prices today. I'm speaking from a factual background, looking at how much time was allocated to this particular subject, how many members were allowed to debate this particular subject. The lack of parliamentary democracy, lack of freedom, not being able to give freedom to members of parliament to interrogate matters on the floor of the House sufficiently, has led to the current food shortages and the increase in the prices. Countrymen and women, you remember that when this particular subject came up a number of times, members of parliament were very eager to talk about the export of maize. And they talked about it on several occasions, persuading Honorable Mutolo Piri, Minister of Agriculture, not to continue exporting maize, warning of the dangers of adverse effects of climate change, and that in the future we may have challenges to maintain our food security. Unfortunately, because of a parliamentary system that could not allow members to speak freely and be able to persuade a government minister, the government minister got away with it and he continued exporting maize. Today, we are in this problem not because of effects of climate change, but because the UPND government, acting negligently, exported maize which should have served the Zambian people in times of need. So, as Parliament, members of Parliament, on behalf of Parliament, this particular aspect, members of Parliament concede that this Parliament did not stand in the gap. Parliament is supposed to provide checks and balances. Parliament is supposed to provide oversight to the executive. Unfortunately, because of certain deliberate changes to the rules, because of not being able to allow Parliament to function as it should, today our people are suffering. Today our people are adversely affected and our food security has been affected. As Parliament, we wish to take part of that blame. If you look at disease in the health sector, cancer and cholera, it was on the floor of that House that we questioned the Minister of Health why they had tampered with the framework contracts that they had found, contracts that have existed even beyond the life of the PF. We warned that it was a very sensitive ministry and that if not properly done, we are going to end up in big problems. Today, people have died in their hundreds. They have died of cholera. They have died of a disease which could have been prevented had there not been mishandling of contracts for drug suppliers in the Ministry of Health. Why is it that the vaccines were being administered when the disease was full-fledged? Previously, there was a program to vaccinate people in those areas which were hotspots for cholera. And because of that, the infections or the cholera outbreak was actually prevented. There was a lot of progress that was made in this particular sector in making Zambia a cholera-free country. But because when we raised matters on the floor of the House on the shortage of drugs, I have to give credit to Parliament that a committee was constituted. A committee was constituted that went around and brought a report. As usual, Parliament shot down that particular report. And this is what we have today. We have people dying of cholera, people dying of cancer each and every day. So as Parliament, we again wish to take a share of that blame. Had Parliament acted properly, had Parliament stood in the gap, we would not have lost so many lives through cholera, we would not have continued to lose so many lives through cancer. We have the fight against corruption. The fight against corruption is nothing to talk about, because most of public procurement in government is being done through single sourcing. Government, in trying to reward their friends, are avoiding public tender. Yes, we agree single sourcing is one mode of procurement, but the most preferred with transparency is the public tender. You get value for money, a transparent procurement system, and competitiveness. Today, we have companies, a day-old company getting a contract at FRA. A company which was registered yesterday is shortlisted on a selective tender, and they wanted a contract. Countrymen and women, companies are shortlisted for selective tender based on capacity, based on past performance and capacity. Now, what does a company which was registered yesterday, what does it go to show in terms of capacity and performance? It was just registered yesterday, and it's given 8 tenders equal to 30 million kwacha. So this is happening today. And it's happening today because what happened first was the UPND government started by weakening the office of the Auditor General. The Auditor General, who is supposed to pick up compliance flaws, a person who did not qualify to be Auditor General was put in that office. Because the law is very clear. You can only act in a position in which you qualify. So if you are 64 years old, and as an auditor should not have been more than 60 years old, a 64-year-old therefore cannot act in that position. But this is all deliberate, because the president of the UPND wanted to weaken the office of the Auditor General. And the reasons are simple. So that there is no report from the Ministry of Agriculture on the corrupt procurement, as it were. Now, as Parliament, when we were debating the issue of the Auditor General, had the members of Parliament been given enough chance to debate, we would have persuaded this government to, first of all, remove the nominee who was 64 years old and cause government to appoint a substantive Auditor General who should have been a functioning and being able to express the audit opinion for onward interrogation by the members of Parliament. So today, the material that is coming out of the Auditor General's office is compromised, is watered down, and that's how it was designed. The executive is getting away with it because Parliament is weak. Parliament is weak and compromised, and being unable to take its position to provide the requisite checks and balances and indeed oversight. So again, speaking on behalf of my colleagues, members of Parliament, we wish to take blame in allowing government, the executive, get away with this particular aspect. Of course, the examples are many. So going forward, countrymen and women, on behalf of members of Parliament, I wish to tender an apology. I wish to unreservedly apologize to the Zambian people for failure of Parliament to take a position and be able to serve the Zambian people, the reason for which we were elected. All of us seated here were elected to represent the Zambian people. We were elected to come and represent the poorest of the poor. But today, the poorest of the poor are dying of cholera because Parliament failed to stand in the gap. Parliament failed to take a position against the maladministration. The economy is in shambles today because Comrade Musokotwane was giving concessions to mining houses. When a few honorable members of Parliament, Honorable Kalon Kosa was one of them, Honorable Kafuaya was one of them, they stood up to warn Honorable Musokotwane that we are likely to have a problem in future because this particular sector is our forex earner. If you give these concessions, we are giving away between $300 to $500 million a year. And if we give away that amount of forex out without an alternative, a source of foreign exchange, we are likely to have high exchange rates and high inflation. The few members that spoke were not allowed room to debate the matter further because in Parliament called it tedious repetition. We were actually told that when the minister has given a response, it's correct, whatever the case. When Musokotwane responded and we tried to counter his response, we were warned and told that the minister is always right. The question that I have, countrymen and women, do we still think Honorable Musokotwane was right? The exchange rate is now heading to 28. We failed to stop him on the floor of the House because the parliamentary system is compromised and it failed to provide sufficient time for the members to stop. Had Parliament stood in the gap, had the members been allowed sufficient time to debate, the dollar would have been below 20 kwacha today because we would have stopped the Minister of Finance from giving those concessions to the mining houses, which has led to the current problems that we have today. The commodity prices, be it fuel, are all because our exchange rates are high. The exchange rates are high because we gave concessions to mining houses. And the only reason, for interest's sake, that those concessions were given was because these are their friends. These are people who looked after them in opposition. And they agreed that time that if we take over power, we are going to bring about policies that are friendly to you so that you can maximize profits. These were not policies that are friendly to the Zambian people. Remember, we defined corruption not to be a mere giving or receiving of bribes, but we said it covers legislation, administration, and policy. So the policies in the mining sector define corruption absolutely. So Comrade Musokotwane and his government are so corrupt in that they are able to give policies in the mining sector that disadvantage the Zambian people. That's the reason why fuel is at 34 kwacha. Because when they gave those concessions, our country has no foreign exchange. We gave away a major source of our foreign exchange. Everything is going up. The two fundamentals are responsible for fuel prices. It's the world oil prices and the exchange rate. So when the exchange rate goes up, the fuel is going up. Why? Because Comrade Musokotwane and President Hakainde Hichilema decided to reward their friends with concessions in the mining sector. Tell me, if somebody wanted to argue, what benefit was there for Comrade Musokotwane to give those concessions to the mining sector, starting with making mineral tax deductible, losing up to 3 billion kwacha plus. What advantage was there? So there was not even a structured plan to show the Zambian people how that increase in production was going to be year by year for us to monitor. For all I know, 3 years down the line, there's been a slump in the production of copper. Production of copper has gone down, and yet you, the taxpayer, the Zambian people, to your detriment, you've let go of over 10 billion kwacha over this time. even the production levels they found are not sustained anymore. They are going down, and yet we let go of over 10 billion kwacha. And today, the dollar is heading towards 30 kwacha. Corruption is not the mere giving or receiving of bribes, but it covers decisions and policies that are made in favor of private capital and not public. And this will cover legislation, administration, and policy. And this is exactly what we've witnessed. But again, as Parliament, we had an opportunity to stop all this. So if Parliament had taken its position, the standing orders of Parliament should be rules of Parliament that should enable Parliament to achieve its objectives. Objectives being checks and balances, oversight, budgeting, and legislation. If we are going to have standing orders in Parliament that will gag or not allow members of Parliament to speak and represent the people, then we might as well not have them. The Constitution guarantees the freedom of members of Parliament to speak. And you want to introduce rules, some of them not even written. Some of the rules that the presiding officers bring on the floor of the House are not in our standing orders. And that's the reason why sometimes you see a conflict between members of Parliament and presiding officers. Because if a presiding officer departs from the standing orders, you do not expect, they don't expect the members of Parliament to follow the same standing orders that they abandoned. It means the standing orders are at large. So sometimes the source of conflict has been the presiding officers departing from applying a standing orders as they were. Standing Order 134 is the most abused. That is the segment where we're supposed to take government to account. But each time, look, the past 3 years, there's been over 500 questions. I don't think there's been over 10 that have been allowed to be qualified. So if at all, it has taken 3 years for members of Parliament not to understand that particular rule, it should have been amended by now to allow members of Parliament to bring issues before government. Parliament should not be to the expedience of presiding officers. Presiding officers should not be the sole determinants of what must come on the floor and what shouldn't come on the floor. That is wrong. I want to put it on record that as members of Parliament, as Zambians at large, let us all wake up, Ukani, to ensure that Parliament begins to work for the people.
What did you say?
Ukani. Zambians should uka and ensure that Parliament begins to work for the Zambian people. Article 118 of the Constitution is very clear. At the expense of justice, you will not hang on to technicality. The issues the members of Parliament raise on the floor of the House, if Honorable JJ says people are dying of hunger, we expect Parliament to give JJ audience so that the responsible minister must look into that. But if we are going to hang on to technicality or bring evidence, that is not the best way of proceeding. And we have seen that because where we are going, and due to the failure of Parliament taking its rightful position, there is an attempt to introduce proxy voting. There is an attempt by Parliament to introduce proxy voting. How will that work? The people of Mporokoso voted for Brian Mundubile. When I'm coming to Parliament to vote, I consult the members of my members in my constituency. Now, they want to introduce proxy voting, where Bafuwe, because he's my very good friend, and I'm leader of opposition, or I'm government chief whip, I send him to Uganda to go and play in the name of committee attendance. So when he's in Uganda, then I must vote for him. Fuwe, first of all, is going to spend taxpayers' money, wasting money in Uganda, pretending to be attending committee meetings, because he is known to me, who's a government chief whip, for instance. Now, because he's aware and he's playing, wasting taxpayers' money, there's something on the table to vote. I should vote for him. It's a no-no. It's a no-no. We have different electoral systems. We have what is called a party list system. In a party list system, candidates don't campaign in constituencies. It's proportional. A party that obtains this number of votes is given a certain number of seats. Then the party begins to divide. Ochilangwa, Lusaka Central, Pavium, and Ipakabwe. There is no direct relationship between the MP and the constituency. The MPs do not campaign in that constituency. In that way, in that system, the proxy voting can work because there is no attachment between the MP and. In our case, the question to ask is, what is prompting this proposal? The current system is working. If you are in the House, you vote. If you are not in the House, you don't vote. In any case, let's say that there may be other factors that will necessitate that. Why don't we just introduce virtual voting? The member must be given credentials from wherever he is to vote for himself. Why proxy voting? So we're very suspicious. This proxy voting, we are very suspicious, and our view is that there's been attempts to introduce gay rights in our constitution. The UPND government has been unable to garner numbers, 2/3 majority, to amend the constitution. So they want to bring about proxy voting so that there can be some machinations. It's a government that does not believe in a proper governance system. It believes in imingalato. So we want Zambians to uka. Zambians ukani. They want to introduce proxy voting so that they provide fertile ground, for constitutional amendments to include gay rights. Something that we said no to. Zambia. We now have no rain because we have departed from the face of God. If you get right, Pangama workshops all over the country. We want. This is a blessed land. This land was chosen to be a Christian nation. We went further to appoint a date of national prayer. We went further to start constructing a house of prayer. And the ministry, Zambia is indeed a blessed country. So any attempt to depart from that, we begin to see calamity. Today we're in this situation because of moving away from the face of God. So if proxy voting may just put us in other problems when God looks at us and knows that we are now beginning to tamper with His holy land. We want every Zambian to resist proxy voting. Let's Ukani, Mwena Zambia Ukani, start debating this proxy voting and send a message very clearly that Tau Kamanje, you will not mingle out to us anymore. We say no to proxy voting. Colleagues, thank you very much.
There you have it. Loaded. It's a loaded statement which has basically touched on a number of issues. And indeed, if we refer for Ulanda, Bantu, and all of you, our colleagues, you remember how much we lamented here about the lack of medicines in hospitals, not only here, but on the floor of the house. And if something was done, we couldn't be where we are today. And indeed, the worst one, Jala. I can see a few of you are looking out. I don't know what magic you are using. because in Sara combination, the answer is correct. What are we doing? It may sound strange, but Oromia for once, pa! Montunaya. But we told Wamtoropili not to be excited and export all the mess here. And that's why I think the leader of opposition is right to say we as members of parliament owe it to our people because they elect us to protect their interests and to fight for their rights. When we fail collectively, but we can be exonerated because we heard our voices, not only on the floor, but even here. when we're interacting with you. And we want that the behavior of our colleague from the Ministry of Agriculture was going to pose a threat to food security. Here we are. Now this is when you're saying, no, we're not going to export. We don't even know whether you people are now feeding on GMO minimum that is coming. We don't know. But we shall hold everyone accountable, because importation of GMO is guided by law. And so if people are breaching the law, we shall hold them accountable at an appropriate time. It's now my honor and privilege to invite Honorable Fube to quickly just add a few comments on the loaded statement that was done by the leader of opposition. Honorable Fube, MP for Chilubi, you've got the floor.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, the media. I want to ride on what the leader of the opposition said about the issues to deal with the parliament. I do agree, I think 1000%, that parliament is responsible for the situation we are in as a country. Why parliament is responsible? Because that is the people's house. Why parliament is responsible is because we stopped a lot of more issues, including Korea. I remember in the last session, Dr. Chitaro raised the issue, he was stopped like a child. We remember how many times we have been stopped, especially when talking about agriculture and things to do with the, food security in the country. But I think I want to overemphasize that this phenomenon we have seen has never been seen in Zambia before. Even at our west, we have never encountered this phenomenon in Zambia before. That is why we find that Article 61, 62, and 63 gives leverage to members of parliament, elected or nominated, to discuss these issues openly, because the roles, as emphasized by the leader of the opposition, is that 1, we represent, 2, we registrate, 3, we approve the budget, 4, we do an oversight role. Leader of the opposition and my other colleagues, you allow me that, me being a Catholic, today we are starting the way of the cross for the first time, for the first Friday. Apatufikire epalia abayuda vaishire evati kakule mchipondo Barnabas mutipele Yesu wakaire tumutanike. That is where we have reached, because the Zambians who are innocent have been crucified by institutional corruption. I think the leader of the opposition did emphasize that as we stand, Parliament has become a very toxic place, very highly toxic, where debate cannot be allowed to flow. And we have alpha and omega in terms of ownership of certain instruments that are supposed to facilitate the flow of debate. And in this case, I mean, at the Privileges Act, Parliamentary Privileges Act, have been suspended in all its entirety because of the practice that is going on there. The 2021, the 2021 book that we use for our rules is suspended. It's the Standing Orders book. It's suspended in its entirety. The Constitution, among them Article 76, is suspended because what is happening in Parliament does not follow what these documents have stated is stipulating. Why do I say so? We have seen how the presiding officers have stopped us as children. Sometimes you are told, before you even speak, the presiding officer knows what you want to talk about. You are taught to be relevant. Especially the opposition. We have suffered that. I am a victim several times. Sometimes you indicate, we are given the part in which to indicate. We also have the bot system. You indicate and you'll be skipped deliberately several times because you belong to. Sometimes a presiding officer would come up with methods like, no, I'm trying to balance in order to avoid certain people to speak that we have seen. And I think this is what has added salt on the wounds. But I want to echo what the leader of the opposition has said and what our deputy SG has said, that we are actually part and parcel of that making, because we have allowed it to go that way. Because we were the ones who have been elected by the people of Zambia. And we were not elected to be subjects, like puppets, to the puppet master called the presiding officer, where we should pray to the tune of the presiding officer every day. And this has killed Zambia. And the reason why, I think the core barrier of the opposition and my deputy SG starts with the president of the Republic of Zambia, who in this case has sworn to protect the constitution, as Article 90, 91, 92 can state, who in this case has applied his heavy hand on the legislature and control the legislature so that he can have a free fall, terms of ruling. And I think we emphasize, I think the leader of the opposition did forget to commit ourselves, that after an apology, we need to commit ourselves, that give us time, things will not go the way they are going. If it means being chased several times, we will be chased several times. Because we have the mandate, and the constitution is very clear in 61, that the power of parliament comes from the people, not from the presiding officer, where the presiding officer becomes alpha and omega to suppress everybody. That is the message, and I think we'll be hearing from us. We cannot disclose a lot here in what we'll try to see how we are going to re-engage so that we become more relevant for the Zambian people. So that next time the Zambian people may not suffer, may not be guinea pigs for GMO, may not be victims for cholera, may not be victims for hunger and many other things. I think because we have compromised everything. You saw the debate, how the debate went on the Ministry of Religious. You saw how medicine, the report commissioned by the speaker, which talked about 51%, and the WHO recommendations are talking about 70 to 80% as universal coverage. Even the people who are voting against that report, their conscience was troubled. They gathered in the car park to complain. The speaker was troubled to really allow that to go, because the report was saying something else, the voting was saying something else. That is unheard of. And I think this practice in the Commonwealth is not there. We want to have some sanity. And if sanity is not given, we will create that sanity. That's what we can say. I think on this note, I want to drop my gun.
Thank you.
Indeed, it was a loaded machine gun. Honorable Member of Parliament for Chilubi, we appreciate your comments and the emotional attachment to the concerns, because really we are speaking about lives of people. We are very few people who have been sent here to represent our people. And indeed, when things are going wrong, and then you are seeing those who are supposed to look after people saying everything is well, they have achieved so much, you start wondering whether we are living in the same world. Because the truth is being felt by our people. We lamented several times. Our people are sharing fertilizer in Medas. Abantu bali akano mfundo muli Medas. Parliament. Milo yesterday, it had to take a report which came from the Auditor General's report. A performance audit which was conducted to look at the performance of FISIC had to review the same things that we are lamenting about. And it went further to confirm that indeed food security at household level and at national level is already compromised as a result of the issues we raised. but we were seen to just have been political. No bensala nine bona. Ero nsala kapondo. Muma komboni umutire umfati no mama junkie. But any fish are open. Papa something to eat, food. And I was shocked. Leader of opposition. I was listening to a radio program. I always listen to our radio program at Radio Maria Christian, Radio Maria radio. It's a Catholic radio. It hosted the senior police officer, and people were phoning in. I was shocked. Citizens advising each other on how to deal with what they have accepted, and illegality, criminality they have accepted, advising each other to be changing money in small denominations. Change 20 quarters, no, not 20 quarters, change 5 quarters, so that when you meet the junkies, you are able to pay your way through. What kind of nation are we in? Where are we? And this was on the radio program. I was so shocked, and I'm still perturbed that we can have such kind of situation as a result of hunger. Food security has got everything to do with national security. They are inseparable. I will now invite Honorable Brother from Copper Belt, Kumigodi, Bashimani, Avena Musakire, na ovalande po kutuma shughuli pantu kusakire kuri abaona ndipo abantu bali batobera amashopu mwalimu mfapa kisoko ne pali ndipo abantu babatobera amashopu. And like my colleague was saying, we were talking about non-communicable diseases today. I'm a BP. We want to polida, waisa kutobera. Tuwakana kwata BP. So, Honorable Karo Usakiri, you can add your comments to what has been spoken by our colleagues.
Thank you very much, Chief. Thank you. Very recognized this Secretary, my two honorable colleagues. Mine is just to supplement what the leader of this opposition was talking about. Leader of opposition to brought in the issue of mineral road tax, which has been forgotten it through making it deductible. It's not only mineral royalty. We have also the company tax. As at December 2023, the target was 588 million. They only collected 37 million, indicating in terms of percentage, indicating a 6% collection, meaning we lost 94%. Then the tax on the mining sales revenue also was targeted at 794. They only collected 625 million kwacha, indicating 79% collection. We lost 21%. All this is due to the weak mining policy. And it is common knowledge that mining is the backbone of our economy. So we are not going anywhere. If the backbone is the one which is collapsing, it is not supplemented by any, because we need a very strong policy in mining for us to stand as a nation, for us to collect revenue and fund our development using the proceeds from the mining sector. So we are not going anywhere as a country, because it will not be magic. Agriculture, we are just in a process of diversifying. So agriculture can't do anything. So me, I'm shocked, leader of opposition. The talk is too much on agriculture, where we're just trying to divert. We are failing to support farmer input support program. Is it? I don't know even the correct term or the correct adjective that I can summon that can even explain the confused state of affairs in the agri sector. I don't know. Then also allow me to share with the colleagues, the media here. I had a question on Wednesday to ask the government to tell us what the composition was of the consortium which held the 30% shares from the Black Mountain. The other question also wanted to find out how many youths and women benefited from the Black Mountain. So the response from the minister in terms of composition, in trying to run away from the question, instead of asking what the composition was, they tried to address the how. The meaning, the how is the process. What should have led us to individuals or organizations. So they diverted to the process where they indicated that a multi-sector approach was involved, whereas SMYH, Nkana Alloy, the community, and other stakeholders were involved in picking the shareholders that government held 30%, which was surrendered it. But I was shocked, and even up to now, still shocked. There was the coincidence that happened where all the stakeholders were involved in selecting. They were landing on names of these individuals who had positions in the party. All of them are district chairmen, provincial chairman, vice provincial chairman, security chairperson. So these stakeholders, I don't know what magic was there. All the names. I come from Musaki. This is a document, this is a background printout. This document. It has all the names, NRCs and everything. The shares held. This document also is showing us the nominee shareholders, it's showing us the beneficial shareholders. All of them are from the UPND. District chairmen, like I've stated, they have all positions. So these stakeholders, I don't know what criteria they applied. There's no one from Sakile constituency.
Corruption.
Yesterday, I was talking to the member of parliament from Ghana. Also, he didn't see in this document anyone from his constituency. I mentioned, I mentioned Usakila and Ghana because Nkana and Usakile, we host the Black Mountain is sitting in these two constituencies, and we expected people to come from this constituency. The second part of the question, I was trying to find out how many youths and women benefited. According to the answer from the minister, he said 11,000 women and 7,500 youths. When we look at 11,000 women, that is at provincial level, Copper Belt. And we have 11 districts in Copper Belt, meaning per district is 1,000. In Kitwe, we have 5 constituencies, meaning at constituent level, it's only 200 in Musaka, 200 in Nkana, 200 in Kavisa, Kwacha, 200. The youths, the 7,500 youths at district level is 138. Also that constituency level is 138 per constituency in terms of benefit. So, and the pronouncement which was made is that earlier before this question was put, that they had reserved 1.5 million kwacha to give to 750 cooperatives. But in yesterday's response, they said 1,200 plus cooperatives against 1.5 million kwacha, meaning somewhere 10,000 plus kwacha per cooperative. Is that what you can call benefit? But my major interest on this document goes on the beneficial shareholders. We did question how they acquired these shares, because the implication is that there are 3 colleagues here who have benefits by shares. At law, these 3 colleagues who are not going to mention here, but they are UPND officials. At law, they were the owners of the Black Mountain, of that 30%. So we did question the minister to state how these people acquired the shares, whether they are bought, if they are bought, at how much. The minister failed to give us the answer because they were just ignored. Even the Company Act takes interest on the beneficial shareholding, because the Act wants to bar a company from being used as a front in illegalities. So these issues, we wanted to let you know that the illegalities at the Black Mountain were at 100%.
Corruption.
Then commenting on the Sokole issue, what has happened there is quite unfortunate. Our colleagues at the market, they get their bread and butter from selling at Sokole. They've been there so many years. Even the system that was used to go and buy, they didn't engage them. There was no stakeholder engagement. They just went brutal and broke. They send their children to school from selling their Sokole market. So we stand with the marketeers at Sokole market. We share their grief, but Sokole was affected to the Naimwe, to Erishika Naimwe. We are on behalf of the marketeers who are affected, I'm appealing to the UPND government to look into the plight of those marketeers. The local authority should desist from such activities. You cannot just wake up. Where are they going to go? They've been there all their life, selling there. You just go and break without providing an alternative. I condemn this action to an inferior status. It is inhuman, which should not happen again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Patriotic. We won't say about this. And what a time. You know, you can even wonder how our brothers and sisters udina mpepi na kuteko waleti ndimtamwishi amwafaidisha ko bamulira ko bulanda lero efutulimo greatness imwamfa ya kwakanya kirachintu baleti Black Mountain ubuteko wafumine ko balishere balombera ko imisepelana bana mayo ukupitia mulize system yetu lero abanensu baisa greatness ubunkalwe efumwamfa Eva chitashani, Eva chitafi benefiti wali idea impact. I don't know if my colleague, the honorable member of parliament for Lunte, would want to be very brief within 2 minutes to say 1 or 2 words before I get back to DSG to wrap up quickly. Okay, he has covered whatever he wanted to say. Just 2 minutes.
Thank you so much. The leader of opposition is from Mbarabasi. Honorable Gambia. Honorable Gambia, the leader of opposition is from Mbarabasi. And so am I. So he has insisted that I should make my contribution.
Within 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
So that we can.
Thank you so much. In that case, I wish to write on the protocols already established. Maybe to just state that I adopt the discourse tendered by all my colleagues as my own discourse. I have realized that UCA has given a lot of pressure to government. In the past 2 days, they have been pumping dollars on the market to reduce the rate. This is what diversity is capable of bringing. Diversity brings progress, because if UCA did not come about, today the dollar should have been near 30 kwacha. But thanks to UCA, it has come down a bit, isn't it? But let me tell government that the measures you are taking are not sustainable. Plastic. They are not sustainable. You are going to strain yourselves. What you need to do is to reverse the mining concessions. What you need to do is to improve the agricultural sector, depoliticize the agricultural sector and make it a viable sector. What you need to do is to improve the energy sector. We are now having difficulties with rain in our country. I don't know what God might be thinking about us. If 60 to 80% of our power is hydro, we are in trouble. That will compound the difficulties that the Zambian people are currently going through. Now, the few issues I would like to say is that UPND should reduce on its desire to be appreciated even when it is on top but doing nothing. UPND should reduce that desire, because there's no way UPND can continue saying we are working on the economy and yet there's nothing happening in the economy. You cannot be saying we are improving things when you go to the filling station, a liter of petrol is 34 kwacha. Look, abashile mona nabashile umfa kuti bafa ukumitasha, but ngamushito ubunga alayasanga ni 350 kwacha. So ala kutasha shani when you are saying inenganaisa nkesa biko ubunga pati 50 kwacha. Even that fuel, which was at 16 kwacha, you are saying inenganaisa ikaba pa 13 kwacha. When that person goes to the filling station, 34 kwacha per liter. Then you still want that person to thank you. To thank you for what? I think not Chilamo. So reduce that desire. Reduce that desire. Not to Arifumia kwa makadas. Okay, to Arifumia kwa makadas. A kada is warning them what? Warning him fumu. Then if I do it, I shut the power makadas. Lakala mbeli mbinga. Takwa chibokuranda po. Ba minister ba ndwalika. By information, he reviewed that they worked with the Honorable Dr. Chimba Kambuli to promote tribalism in Zambia so that PF could be headed. Now, my question is, since their motivation was to ensure that Edgar Lungu and PF were headed, what other things did they promote? What was the role of UPND in gas? Because those are things which cause the Zambian people to hate PF, isn't it? What was the role of UPND in those cadres and markets? What was the role of UPND in political violence? These are questions. And the guy said, I can now start to review. He reviewed the Camo. I'll step off a review Camo. So for me, I find that this UPND government is a true enemy of the Zambian people. And like Honorable Nawakwi said, it's a serious accident that ever happened to this country. It is a serious accident and maybe it's going to be costly to repair this accident. I'll leave that and say why I think Honorable Kambioko wanted me to speak. The economy is bad. The reserve ratio has been increased. What that means is that there is little money available to commercial banks to offer lending to businesses. Other than that, the policy rate has been increased. What that may imply is that money has become more expensive. So two things have happened, as far as I can see. There's little money because of an increased reserve ratio, and the money has become more expensive because of an increased policy rate. So all these businesses and individuals who are competing for little money, that money will become more expensive. But other than the cost arising from competing for little money, there is also a deliberate policy of increasing that cost. Then a careless man will come and say, we are making an economic environment enabled. What enablement are you making? How enabling are you making this environment? The business transactions now have become so expensive. Even just a transaction on your phone, my friend, it will attract a tax. On your phone, sending 100 kwacha to the person sitting next to you, it will attract a cost. If that same 100 kwacha is sent to another person, another tax. We are in big trouble. I think that for me, I won't thank you, UPND, until you show a trend which is meaningful and which is sensible. So far, everything is senseless. Thank you so much.
There you have it. There you have it, colleagues. I also want to, on behalf of, before I call our Deputy Secretary General this time around to wrap up and maybe just touch on one matter that you have left. I also want to convey our healing wishes to our brother and comrade, Honorable Chimbakambwiri, who was evacuated under very interesting circumstances to go and get treatment. I would have joined my colleague in commenting on the issues which were raised by the government spokesperson, but mine today on behalf of my colleagues is to wish Honorable Chimbakambwiri a quick recovery, because that's what he needs. He doesn't need heartless pronouncements that may just affect his healing process. And so on that, I would like now to invite Honorable Nixon Chilangwa to conclude his.
Thank you, colleagues. The Patriotic Front is still intact under the leadership of President Hedi Kachagwalungu and the Secretary General, Honorable Rafo Nakachinga. Honorable Brian Munduvide to us remains leader of opposition, and Honorable Kampiongo still remains whip, deputized by one other than Honorable Anthony Cassandra. Colleagues, today I saw a screaming headline in the newspaper, and I wanted Her Honor the Vice President to confirm or deny what was written in the newspaper, because 90% of the times that the UPND leadership says something, they always turn around at Yovambe Peshe. I wanted her to explain this headline, which says, we didn't promise. I want to be sure first, if indeed she said these words. I want to be sure, because for me, where I sit, for me going back into history, for me going back to social media, I know that UPND promised hills and mountains, promised the Garden of Eden on earth, Paradise personally. And now to be attributed, as she said, they didn't promise. So for me, I want first and foremost for her to confirm that she said this. Today she was not available for the president, for Her Honor the Vice President question time in Parliament. But whenever she will come, wherever she will come back, if it will mean 20 years, if it will mean next week, I want her to talk about this issue. And this is the only issue that I'm keeping for her. She must confirm that they didn't promise. If they didn't promise, then they lied. There are only two things. I promise him, and this is what I've promised, or have lied to him. So this statement is loaded, and I'm waiting for Your Honor, the Vice President. I'm sure you can hear me, you can see me, you can hear what I'm saying. Your Honor, the Vice President, I want you to confirm that you as UPND never promised Dungeons anything. And if you didn't, then all what you said, you were just lying. So I just want that confirmation. Once they confirm that, then we shall go into the nitty-gritty of what we must deal with. If it's not them who said minimum will be at 50 kwacha, she will be at 13 kwacha. If it's not them who said all sorts of those things, then I don't know. So tukasapuishana na Vice President, tukapuishana next week, next Friday, on the floor of the House. I thank you, colleagues. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much indeed. It's an interesting pass our regards to the praise singers. Ours is not doing for praise singing. I think we have been elected for a noble cause of our people. And we stand ready to face the consequences of standing for the people, and it shall be that until our tours of duty come to an end. Once again, to just appreciate you, dear colleagues, for this continuous interaction. We look forward to more interactions. This session we have begun is a legislative session where we need to see government coming with views to back up all those commitments they've made to the people of Zambia. They must be couched in laws, and also review those that are not speaking to the aspirations of the Zambian people. So take in interest and see how many bills will be coming. We shall keep updating you on those bills.